What it do, crew? Is Geeked Out, and I'm here to talk about Tobirama Senju. As many of you may know, or if you have TikTok, you've pretty much seen it, that a lot of people call Tobirama Senju a racist. They call him the worst Hokage and blatantly call him the reason of why the Uchiha massacre happened. And I'm here to say, when I look at Tobirama Senju, I do not see a racist. I do not see the reason of why the Uchiha massacre happened. I see a boy who had built up security measures for himself and his family because of the times that he fought. I see a man who built systems that work even to Boruto that are still in place. And I see a man who was a leader, a man who fought for everything that the Hidden Leaf Village has now. And the first thing I'm going to say is this. A lot of you may say, how could you justify a man who made such bad things, such as the Ambu? And I say to this, I say to that this. Tobirama grew up in an age where he was fighting with the Uchiha as a kid. He saw his brothers get killed. He saw how violent it was. He was born in a violent time. And if you look at everything that Tobirama has, every jutsu that he learned, every forbidden jutsu that he made, it was in the pursuit to stop Uchiha. And it wasn't because it wasn't because of a hatred for the Uchiha. It was simply because at that point in time, the Uchiha were enemies. They killed his family. They killed his brothers. They killed his fathers. They killed cousins and neighbors and friends. And at that point, he made himself something that the Uchiha had to deal with. And if you look at it, he did it perfectly. When you look at Tobirama, what do you think of? I think he was the creator of the Flying Raijin. He was the creator of Water Dragon Jutsu. He was the creator of Shadow Clone Jutsu. And if you look at that, and if you really look at these jutsus, they all counteract Uchiha members. Water Dragon Jutsu is to counteract the Uchiha's known jutsu, the Fireball Jutsu. Right? So that counteracts the Fireball Jutsu. What do Uchihas have? They have incredible sight. And reaction time. They have incredible reaction time and incredible sight. You would literally have to split. Sorry. You would literally have to split Bitsum in order to even get a chance to hit him. So Tobirama made a jutsu where you don't move, you just teleport. They can't perceive what isn't there, right? He made the Flying Raijin to counteract the Uchiha's vision, right? So when this comes into play, right, and when he gets into a situation such as that, where you're in a situation where you have to fight in order to survive, because you've seen what happens to people who aren't strong enough or aren't resourceful enough to beat the Uchiha, and he made that. And when Hashirama and Madara came to an agreement that the war should end, he agreed, but he forgave and he agreed, but he didn't forget. And I think a lot of people forget how much trauma that must have been to be in a situation where you're constantly fighting against another clan and you have to build yourself in such a way that to survive that. Right? We talk about Madara and Hashirama, because they are freaks of nature. Hashirama has wood style. Wood style is debatably the strongest Kekai Genkai known to man. Madara was one of the first people we ever recorded to have a eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. And because of that, he was known as a terrifying menace. His chakra reserves were elite. His manipulation of chakra was elite. He was all around. The only person that could even equivalent to Madara was Hashirama. And because of that, when they agreed to make the village and they agreed to settle the war, they agreed to that. And when that happened, Tobirama understood that if Hashirama wasn't here, if Hashirama wasn't who Hashirama is, which is debatably one of the strongest person in Naruto history, if he wasn't as strong as he is, Madara will be able to destroy the Hidden League village with ease. And that became even more realistic when Madara decided to attack the Hidden League village. And because of that, I think this is why a lot of people give Tobirama a bad rap. They don't see what that would do to you. They don't. It's hard to even think of what would what that would do to somebody's mind, right? So we're gonna skip to why I think Hashirama is the best Hokage of all time. Firstly, I want to talk about the first thing. When Hashirama and Tobirama first decided to make the Hidden Leaf village, they agreed to one thing: no more children in war. No more of that. They grew up in that situation and they don't want any more of it. So, this is what I have to say. When the Hidden Leaf village first got assembled, there were no rules, no systems. The only thing that was ever solidified is that the Hokage was Hashirama. And after the attack, I think within Tobirama there was a switch. He realized that if there were ever to be another Madara, another person that ever willed the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, there will be no way for him to stop that. So, what did he do? At that point, the village has just been started up. He gave the Uchiha an important role within the village. He gave them the role of police. He gave them the role of police, not because they were Uchihas or he wanted to keep an eye on them. Well, he did, but it was for a separate reason. He gave them the role of police officers because they were masters in genjutsu, and on top of that, they had the best perception within their village, only second to the Hyuga clan. And that's only if they had base Sharingan. If they had any type of Mangekyo, they were way better. They had way better perception than any person with a Byakugan ever. Right? So, he made them a very important part of the Hidden Leaf village. And he also made this for a second reason. He made this because he didn't want a second Madara to appear. Because he knew if another person or another Uchiha that was as strong as Madara were to come out of the Uchiha clan, the village will be in intimate danger if that person decided to switch sides. So he made the Uchiha clan police officers for two reasons. He wanted to make sure that there would never be another Madara, or not never be another Madara, but if there was another Madara, that he could either control it, So that way he doesn't attack the village if you know if he decides to go rogue, or that way he can influence that person to help the village instead of become a person that wants to attack him. And he did that well. And I think a lot of people forget that Tobirama has made some of the most influential systems and choices in all of the Hidden Leaf Village. So when Hashirama first got all the tail beasts, he wanted to give each village a tail beast, which is the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, for free. And Tobirama, being the person that he is, told Hashirama, do not give these beasts away for free, sell them. And with those funds that they procured from the tail beast, they have survived. That money has made them become a dominant figure in the past 3 world wars. Right? So, with that, he also made other systems such as the Ninja Academy, which was made by both Hashirama and Tobirama. But mainly Tobirama came up with the systems, Hashirama came up with the idea. Hashirama didn't want children to be in war. Tobirama made a system so they never had to be. So he made the Ninja Academy so there would never be children soldiers. Second, there would never be children soldiers. And then on top of that, if the children did want to become soldiers, they learned the basic information that they needed in order to defend themselves. Because in the academy, they at least learned how to do taijutsu, they learned how to do some ninjutsu, and they learned how to use weapons, and they also learned how to use shadow clone or clone jutsu. Sorry. And within that, he made it where you can't graduate or you can't become a soldier until you graduate. Now, granted, there was a flaw in this system, which I'm going to go into later, but generally, this was a pretty good system to prevent children to go into war. The only times where this didn't work was when there was a child that was so advanced that they graduated early, such as Kakashi, Itachi, and Minato. Those 3 are the counteracts. But they were so talented that it would be a waste to... they were so talented in ninjutsu, or just being a ninja in general. They were so talented at that, it would be a waste to keep them in the academy. But granted, it kind of counteracts the idea of what Tobirama did. But this happened generations later after Tobirama died. And I also want to talk about the Anbu. Tobirama made the Anbu, firstly, to protect the Hokage, which was his brother at the time. And second, he also made it to do elite missions that normal ninjas wouldn't be able to do. And that was it. And, gather information. It was gather information, assassinate, whatever. It was high-level work that normal ninjas either wouldn't do or didn't want to do. Right? So, he made the Anbu. And I think a lot of people forget that he also made most of the forbidden jutsu on that list. And none of those were granted, a lot of them were made in a time where he was still fighting. A lot of those jutsus were made in a time where he was still fighting. But the only jutsu that we know of that he was made when he wasn't fighting was the Edo Tensei. The revival. I'm sorry, I might be saying the wrong jutsu, but the revival jutsu that Orochimaru used. And with that, we can deduct that I don't think he was a racist. I think he was precautious. I think that he knew that he was that type of guy. We know this ever since we seen him when he was young. He was a very cautious guy, and he was very fearful, right? When Hashirama came up with the idea to end this war because nobody really remembered why they were fighting, Tobirama was hesitant. He wasn't sure. He's always been hesitant. He's always been strategic, and I think that's one of the strongest things he has going for him is that he's always been strategic. If we didn't have him, we probably wouldn't have the Hidden Leaf Village the way it was when Naruto got around. Because a lot of the funds that he a lot of the systems and funds that he procured were massive when it comes to the Great Ninja Wars. So when the Great Ninja Wars came around, those funds were like godsends. You know, a lot of the other countries didn't have that amount of money to just procure weapons and all these other things. So that made the Hidden Leaf Village one of the most powerful villages out of the entire ninja world. And I also want to state that a lot of people will say that even though he didn't, even though he made the Anbu and the Ninja Police Force, and both of those led to the Uchiha Massacre, and I want to say that I truly believe that was not the intention that Tobirama had. I don't think Tobirama was racist. I don't think that was the case. I think he was precautious, and he's it has always been a character trait that he has had since we first got introduced to him as a young boy. He's always been precautious, and I want to state that even though he made these systems weren't made in those purposes, and if the system was evil or turned into a bad system, it wasn't because he made it. It was because somebody else took it over. So, say for instance, when he made the Anbu was made to protect his brother, and was also made to do missions that normal ninjas wouldn't do, or couldn't do, right? So he made the Anbu. And the only time the Anbu ever turned bad is when the third Hokage came around, which was Hiruzen. And Hiruzen gave Danzo the ability to control the Anbu. And because of that, because of who Danzo is, he made it into what it was. Danzo made it bad. It wasn't bad originally. Originally, it was a force that protected the Hokage, and it was a force that did missions. That was it. But Danzo is what made it that bad. And I also want to state that when it comes to the Uchiha Massacre, it wasn't Tobirama who did the Uchiha Massacre. It was also Hiruzen and Danzo. Hiruzen lacked leadership. He lacked the ability to say no. And because of that, he gave Danzo way more power than he probably should have had. And because of that, Danzo, and also I want to state that Hiruzen was that bad Hokage. He was probably debatably the worst Hokage. It was so many things that happened while he was in office that it was horrendous. But I'm going to get to that later. But Hiruzen and Danzo were the ones who forced the Uchiha Massacre. When the Nine Tails attacked, Hiruzen gave the order that the Uchiha were not to be involved because the Nine Tails were controlled by somebody with the Sharingan. And to justify that might seem fair. That might seem fair to Hiruzen, but it doesn't seem fair to the Uchiha, who want to defend their home and feel as if they're not being treated equally. And because of that, that started conversations of a queue over the Hidden Leaf Village, and because of that, Danzo ordered Itachi to kill the rest of his clan. And I would and I think that Tobirama gets a lot of the worst parts of it because Tobirama isn't necessarily the strongest. He isn't. He doesn't talk, and I think a lot of times, well, he talks, but he isn't like a very talkative person. He doesn't smile. He isn't a smile, jokey, happy character uh, like Naruto or Hashirama or Kakashi or any of those guys, right? He's a very serious person, and I think a lot of people confuse that because a lot of the villains tend to be very serious people, like Pain and Obito after Toby, because Toby was Toby, but I think he gets the bad end of the stick because a lot of people associate being quiet with being bad, right? Or not smiling being bad. Even though Tobirama has proven himself to be not bad, he has single-handedly kept this village afloat even after his death. Even after his death, he has created systems. He has created economic growth. He has created almost every system in this goddamn village so it can grow. And I think he gets the bad end of the rap because he is quiet, because he is serious. And I think a lot of people associate that quiet and that seriousness to be bad. Because in Naruto, a lot of the good characters, joke and laugh, and they do funny stuff. But Tobirama isn't that person. He grew up in an entirely different age. And the only reason why Hashirama isn't that way is because Hashirama is genuinely kind and lighthearted. He was one of the few people to ask questions about. He was one of the few people to ask, "Hey, why are we fighting?" And that speaks to the level of Hashirama as a character. But as when Hashirama is an outlier, there's people that are inliers, and those inliers are people like Tobirama. Tobirama is quiet. He's quiet. He thinks logically. He comes up with systems. He comes up with things that are supposed to last. And I think he gets a bad end of the rap because he is a quiet character. A lot of the more talkative, more laughable characters are good people. I think because he is quiet, because he is serious, that he has a bad rap. And that he is associated with doing something bad because when you think about it, most of the good characters laugh and joke. Think Hashirama, Naruto, Sakura, Rock Lee, Shikamaru, people like that laugh and joke. But when we first get introduced to Tobirama, he doesn't laugh and joke. He's completely serious. He is the complete opposite of his brother. His brother is empathetic. He understands the heart. He understands the heart. He's emotional. But when we go swap over to Tobirama, he's logical. He's cold. He's logical. And because of that now granted, that's a great character contrast, but because of that, in the way Naruto is written, a lot of the good guys are laughing, jokey people, and a lot of the quiet, serious guys are evil, right? Or bad. And because of that, I think he gets the bad rap. But to sum up this video, I think when I look at Tobirama, when I truly look at Tobirama, I do not see a racist. I see a kid who developed such a disdain and fear for the Uchiha clan that he had to build systems in order to survive it. While his brother could be happy and go lucky and forgive everybody, Tobirama he saw what had happened. He saw his brothers lose their life. While Hashirama could forgive and forget it with Hashirama, Tobirama could forgive, but he could never forget. That's the one thing that I think differentiates those two. Besides, obviously their personalities. And I think he gets a bad rap for being racist or, Uchiha, like a Uchiha Slayer or whatever, right? I think he gets a bad rap because of his character, and I think if you look deep enough into the lore, if you look deep enough into the story, you can see that when Hashirama talks about the will of fire, the will of fire is to pit the village over everything else, to pit the village, to make sure the village survives afterwards, to give your life for the village. When he talked about the will of fire, I think there's no greater comparison, no greater person that represents the will of fire by itself than Tobirama. He gave his life for the village. He gave his life for the village as a Hokage. He gave he gave the Hidden Leaf Village systems well beyond his life, and that we still use, and even in Boruto, we see he came up with the tuning exams. He came up with so much stuff that the Hidden Leaf Village still uses in Boruto. And I think there's no greater way to describe the will of fire than Tobirama himself. Tobirama sacrificed family. He sacrificed family. He sacrificed pain. He sacrificed revenge. He sacrificed his brothers. He sacrificed his own life to make sure that the village continues to succeed. And I think there's no greater person that represents the will of fire than Tobirama Senju. And if you made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe. And please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you agree or if you're still wrong. And that's a wrap. Fade to black.